All right, so this decision to go into Libya in the first place, well, it's become the center of conversation here in Washington. It's become both a political issue and a point of contention in the power struggle between the legislative and executive branches. Just this morning, there was a hearing on the matter with senators on both sides of the aisle questioning the State Department's top lawyer, Harold Koh. Here's the deal. Koh is urging U.S. lawmakers to vote for a resolution authorizing the U.S. role in the NATO-led mission in Libya. Lawmakers say under the War Powers Resolution, President Obama should have come to Congress for authorization in the first place a long time ago. Here's one senator who used Barack Obama's own words during his questioning.
I want to give you a quote from then Senator Obama in December of 2007, and he said, quote, "The president does not have power under the Constitution to unilaterally authorize a military attack in a situation that does not involve stopping an actual or imminent threat to the nation," end quote. Now, I've heard the discussion of that. Can you give me a simple answer? Is that still his position?
It's a question lots of people are asking. Of course, regarding Libya, there's lots to talk about. And for more, I want to bring in Vijay Prashad from Hartford, Connecticut. He's the Director of International Studies at Trinity College in Hartford.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hey there. There you are. I want to talk about some of the key arguments the Obama administration made today at this hearing. I know a lot of people have been waiting sort of to hear how they would lay this out on the table. Basically, they said the mission in Libya is limited, the risk of escalation is limited, the exposure of the armed forces is limited, and so without full military engagement, the War Powers Resolution has not been violated. Attorney Harold Koh arguing also the word hostilities should be defined by Congress and by the president and, of course, in the historical context. So, my question to you is, do these arguments hold any water?
Well, not at all, and largely because the idea of limited engagement is rather absurd to me. The war was going to begin based on a UN resolution. Within a few hours of the war beginning, with the French and Americans striking Libya, they had already violated the narrow terms of the UN resolution, and now it looks like Libya is simply being bled. There have been 100 days of attacks, 24,000 sorties. There's a very gradual and painful bleeding of Libya to the extent where Gaddafi's ally and then defector Moussa Koussa has said that Libya is being made into what he calls a giant Somalia. So no, this idea of limited engagement, these nominal games around terms like hostilities, none of this actually is making sense. This is smoke and mirrors. This is inside the Beltway discussion hearing. This has nothing to do with what is actually happening in Libya.
Hostility is certainly an ambiguous word to some, but probably there on the ground in Libya, not such an ambiguous word. I want to talk about sort of how this is being defined, how this is being discussed. Some have taken Obama's action a step further. I want to listen to a statement made by a U.S. congressman last week, and then I'll get your take.
Congress has nothing to do with the decision about whether to go to war or not, and the president is becoming an absolute monarch.
Vijay, do you think this is fair, that by going it alone, without authorization by Congress, that the president is acting as if he himself is a king?
Well, there's a habit of war making that exceeds Obama. I mean, this goes back to Vietnam, even the Korean conflict, but really the place you see it most is in the last 20 years. The United States president has not, over the last 20 years, come to Congress to seek authorization for a war. There have been very poorly defined statements brought before Congress. The same thing in Afghanistan. If the United States had properly gone to war in Afghanistan, then it may not have been so unclear about the legality, for instance, of killing Osama bin Laden. So, there is a great deal of ambiguity over the last 15 years in most of the wars the United States has gone into. So I don't see this as an Obama problem. I see this as a problem that the United States has gotten into over the last few decades.
I think that's such an important point, but it seems to me, what's kind of happening here is that the administration is bringing up this historical precedent and using it almost as an argument. Well, you want to crack down on me? Well, look what Bush did. Look what Reagan did. I think that's what's going on a lot of the time, and the more it goes on, the more it's going to be used as, well, he got to do it, why can't I do it?
Well, yes, and this is where you say 2020 hindsight is actually something that we should have at our benefit. If Bush did this and it didn't work out so well in Iraq, it may not be a bad idea to take some lessons from that. If Clinton did this and it didn't work out so well for Somalia, well, maybe it's a good idea to look into that as well. So I would say that, yes, fine, other presidents have done the same kind of thing, but the results demonstrate for us quite clearly that you are going to break countries, you're going to intensify hatreds, and this is particularly odd when there are very, very well laid out and reasonable paths to end the conflict coming out of places like South Africa, coming out of the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. So if we don't take seriously these alternative pathways, we get stuck into thinking that the only solution is war making.
Interesting. So you're arguing that you should look at history and say this is a reason not to do it again. I want to look, I think, some important points you brought up. Let's take a look at what's actually going on the ground in Libya. Now, a former CIA asset who covered Libya back during Lockerbie, she's coming forward with a few observations, and I want to just put a few of them up on the screen and we can talk about them. She says, NATO has been grossly deceived and should cease at once from protecting these rebels. U.S. tax dollars are training a new Taliban to intimidate the Libyan people into submission while the West plunders Libya's wealth. This is Susan Lindauer, the former CIA asset. She also says CIA operatives working side by side, rebel forces driving around trucks is proof that U.S. forces are already on the ground and active participants in the atrocities. She says video shows several dead Libyan soldiers with their throats cut lying in the back of a truck. These killings violate the Geneva Conventions of War, which protect enemy soldiers after capture. Some pretty interesting things there. These are things that no one really seems to be talking about. I guess I want to get your comment on this.
Well, I would say that, Donatella Rovera of the Amnesty International spent 3 months investigating the claims that the Gaddafi regime was using Viagra with its troops. And she came back and said that is absolutely untrue. There is no evidence for that. But what she did was she spent 3 months investigating these claims. So far, neither Amnesty International nor Human Rights Watch have investigated claims that the West has conducted a systematic killing of civilians. So, what I would say is Lindauer's, the claims she is making are significant and they need to be investigated. And I, frankly, don't understand how the great organizations like Amnesty and Human Rights Watch spend a lot of their resources investigating war crimes by the other side, but thus far have failed to provide a comprehensive report about war crimes from NATO and from the United States. And much the same goes to Ocampo's office at The Hague. Ocampo used as fact the claim that Viagra was being given to the troops, a claim now completely, at least from Amnesty International, a claim that has been debunked. Meanwhile, Ocampo has said nothing about NATO crimes.
All right, certainly a lot of things to talk about here. I'm sure we could go on, but we're out of time. Vijay Prashad, Director of International Studies at Trinity College.